Hello, I am Summer Wyke, and for this infographic assignment, I was inspired by datasets about chocolate, which is a product of the cocoa bean, and I decided to dig into the global production of cocoa beans for one whole year. The most recent data I could find is from the year 2013. Cocoa beans grow inside of a cocoa pod, as shown here in the centered graphic image. These cocoa pods grow on trees, are considered a fruit, and are harvested just like any other agricultural crop. Across the world, 10.1 million acres of land are harvested to produce 4.6 million tons of cocoa beans with a production value of $7.3 billion. These cocoa beans make up only 0.1% of food in the world. I was actually surprised to learn about these numbers, since 4.6 million tons is actually over 9 billion pounds of cocoa beans. That's amazing. Now we will look at production by country. A total of 38 countries around the world produce cocoa beans, and as you can see here, they are all located near the equator in what is known as the cocoa bean belt. Cocoa beans grow in pods that grow on trees, like I mentioned, and these cocoa trees thrive in moist tropical climates. The biggest producer of cocoa beans is Côte d'Ivoire, previously known as the Ivory Coast. This small country in Africa produces 1.45 million tons of cocoa beans in 1 year. Take note that the United States of America does not produce any cocoa beans. Now let's take a look at the biggest producers. I found it really interesting that it only takes 7 out of 38 countries to produce 90% of the supply of cocoa beans. As mentioned previously, Côte d'Ivoire produces the most at 31%. Brazil is roughly 26 times the size of Côte d'Ivoire, but only produces 6%. Other top producing countries include Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Indonesia, and Ecuador. Now let's take a look at trade by region, and we find that cocoa beans are the third most traded agricultural product behind coffee and sugar. If we take a look at the first bar graph, we see that Africa produces the most cocoa beans, while Europe does not produce any. The next two bar graphs show both imports and exports. We see that Africa exports most of its supply, and while Europe did not produce any cocoa beans, they import and export the largest quantities. Finally, the last bar graph shows the final quantity or supply that each region has after trade. The Americas end up with the largest supply of cocoa beans. I had a lot of fun learning about these data sets and putting together this infographic. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thanks.